Chinese church was a very important thing in our lives. Every Sunday morning, you started the Sunday morning by going to church. After church, you can do whatever you want, but it had to start in church. The fact that it took the form of an English service was not particular pulsing to us or anything, because we were familiar with the language, we knew the hymns, that sort of thing. And so we just went along with the flow. It would be a full church of 300 to 400 people, and we had a 6 o'clock mass in the morning, and then 7:30, which would be packed. Children, you would scarcely have space for children. Children had to come to Sunday school, which would be at 9 o'clock. And from 9 to 12 was the children's service. And you went there and you did your own thing. We have no idea who wrote the diary. All we know is that the diary was handed to my father. And we didn't know what it was.
So your popo?
Yes, my popo.
And tell me about your popo.
My popo was a woman who spoke precise English all the time. And when she became 90, she lost her memory. She went to bed, and the next morning, it was a totally different woman who woke up. She was Chinese, speaking Chinese. She did not know one word of English, and she never spoke English again. We tried to get somebody who could speak Chinese to her. And when we did that, she got more confused because she was not speaking the Chinese that they were speaking.
She was speaking an older dialect, or?
Yes. And not only older dialect, she was also speaking Mandarin, so which we did not know was different. My parents, they were firstborn Chinese. I suppose they would have had the hardest time to follow the rules, but we were all brought up to the English set of rules. There was nothing else for us. The manner in which the Chinese of our day learned English was because all the language that was spoken was in fact Chinese. And it was Chinese that came from different parts of China. And therefore, I could not understand what you were saying. But in reality, what happened to the Chinese, the first set of Chinese who came, is that none of us could speak the other's language. And so we had to learn English, because English was the common language that we could all speak. And that is why we learnt English so quickly.
The Chinese have been living in Guyana for since the middle of the 19th century. Yes, so they've been in Guyana for 160 years. And they came mostly as migrant workers from the south of China, Fujian province. So they were poor people. They came to work, many of them, in the sugar plantations. But being Chinese, they were very hardworking. They saved their money, and they spent their money on their children. So they sent their children to school, and the children were very bright. And before too long, the children became lawyers and doctors and engineers and professors. So very soon, within 30, 40 years of arrival, the Chinese became a very professional body of people.
The first set of Chinese that came to Guyana, I would say they came here, again, looking perhaps for betterment. They came here to work on sugar plantations, and they were not maybe masters of their own faith. The second wave of Chinese now, they're actually coming here, they're starting their own businesses, so they're more in charge of what they do and how they do it. And I think that's a big difference between the two. So the first set did not have so much flexibility in what they do with their time and all that. Eventually, some of them became businessmen and business persons and so forth.
This is a picture of Lucy, my great-grandmother, and her husband, Leotak, and her son George, and his wife. This was the picture that they took the night before they left to go back to China in 1904.
And the adults are all wearing the Chinese clothes, but the children are
Children.
wearing the Western clothes.
Yes, because that's how they used to dress. The adults wore Chinese and the children wore English. So that is her. No foreign language at all. We learned English. We learned English. No subtitles or anything like that. Nothing. I think it was good because other than that, if we had been brought up learning Chinese, we would have had lots of different propositions which never faced us. We went straight from school to home and home back. You know, it was the same language, the same everything.
Oh, my name is Brian James. I was born in Guyana in 1944. I grew up as a Guyanese because growing up in the 50s and so forth, we all went to school and so together. And it wasn't, it may be hard to reconcile today, but growing up you were just another boy or so forth growing up. And I would say I was a Guyanese rather than a Chinese because we didn't speak Chinese at home. We didn't really follow any of the Chinese traditions and so forth. It was primarily the Guyanese traditions, pepper pot, garlic pork, stuff of that nature. So I would have to say Guyanese.
Right. This is Lucy's shoe. Mm-hmm. Now, when I was a child,
Who was Lucy?
this was a gorgeous thing to look at because
Even when I was a child, it was a lot better looking.
all these little braids and so on the side of the shoe were embroidered by beads.
And she did it herself.
And she did it herself. If you look at the bottom of the shoe, you would see how it was done.